Dude, she broke his heart and she broke his bank account as well. She made him go broke. And then she leaves and with her husband. Camming is a multi-billion-dollar business. In case you don't know what is camming, cam girl or cam model is someone performing in front of a webcam, giving a performance of basically shaking her ass and doing all sorts of activities to, having sexual context. And she receives tips from online audience, from registered users, which could be anonymous, or they can also request private online meeting. Because the competition is huge, most of the cam models don't earn that much. However, this video is not going to be about how much you make as a cam girl, because I don't really care. The only thing I care about is something that really struck me, and I want to know your opinion about it, because it's also psychological, there's love involved, and I just want to hear, am I the only one feeling sorry for the guy? Let me know in the comments. I came across this Netflix documentary, and I'm not really interested in the whole thing, as I said, but I wanted to know the behind the scenes of the industry. And especially mentioning Andrew Tate, he always says I made so much money with cam girls. And I thought, okay, let me look into this business, because as you know, I love making money. I want to educate myself on all sides in terms of the money, even on something that I would never do, by the way. So you can comment all you want that you want me to start a cam girl account or OnlyFans account. Forget it. The documentary on Netflix is called Hot Girls Wanted, and there was a part 1, and now this is part 2, and it's called Turned On. And there's a couple of episodes, and it wasn't that impressive, so I kind of went quickly, and then I discovered an episode called Take Me Private, and that really caught my interest because, okay, I'll paint you a picture. A guy in his 30s, nerd, and this is his words, by the way, and this is a real person, this is a literally real story that happened. A guy in his 30s, nerd, never had a girlfriend, and of course, as you can see on the picture, the looks of him, I'm not judging, I'm just saying, from the documentary, I think he's a really nice person, but obviously there is, certain part of probably, he's not a generally, handsome guy that, women would jump on. Average salary, horrible old car, and really small house. And he spends all his savings, and I'm saying all his savings that he saved for 4 years, and a big chunk of his monthly income on a cam girl, on a specific cam girl, and her name is Alice Frost. And she's a real cam girl. Right now, currently, I checked, I found her on Twitter. She's doing a OnlyFans, obviously. So she's continuing this. She's not that huge. She's got 20,000 followers. I mean, on Twitter, I never visited OnlyFans. I don't want to. So if you know how big she is there, let me know in the comments. But she's not anything special. If I was a guy, I wouldn't be interested at all. I don't think she's good looking, but again, I'm not actually want to offend or insult. The problem is he thinks, and he truly believes that this cam girl is his girlfriend, is his actual girlfriend. She's living in LA, he's living in Australia, and it kind of seems like long distance relationship. And long term, yes, because it's been 4 years. And he's sponsoring her, and he's literally sponsoring her. And she even mentions he paid for everything in the house. I'm gonna get to that. And he decides that he's going to, take all his savings, buys her flight ticket to Australia to visit him, and he's gonna pay for the whole trip. He's gonna pay for all the expenses, the food, the gas. He's gonna drive her around for a couple of days. So of course he wants to get laid, right? I mean, the problem is she's married, by the way, but she claims to be polyamorous. So he believes that she actually loves him, and she actually she says she loves him. Every time she has a phone call with him or, webcam call, she tells him, I love you, Tom, and he's all happy, and he's all oh my God, I have a girlfriend. And she texts him, he Snapchats him, and it really, the way they document it, kind of it's back and forth. It's and they have this, he works in the office building, and as I mentioned, he never had a girlfriend, so there's obviously like, you know, some issues, and he said like he's got problems to meet girls real life, and he doesn't know how to do it, and now he thinks that he's got a girlfriend, and he's obviously having some mental health issues. But she, you know, very nicely leads him on. She feels sorry about this later on, but like she's so happy to like, oh, I'm gonna go to Australia, I'm gonna meet you, and it's gonna be great. She gives him all this, you know, hope. And he says, you know, I have problems to develop a relationship in real life, and this is what I'm getting from cam girls, and especially from Alice. We build this relationship and it's real. She says she's destined to be friends with some people, you know, she believes in destiny, and never had a guy like this and a friend like this, and the fact that it comes with a financial benefit is like a bonus, right? He sent me thousands of dollars in those few years, and he basically pays for all my bills. And then she explains, you know, like she's married and her husband is okay with that. Like nobody in that whole documentary has any balls, you know. Where's males? Where's men who would be offended or insulted, or who would never be with a woman like this because she treats men like hell? This is horrible, like she wraps them around her finger and then she breaks their heart. But before that, she takes all their money, right? First. I mean, again, her husband, in his words, he says like, oh, you know, I want to be with her and she's a catch and I will never find anyone better. So I've definitely like, I accept everything she does. She does phone calls and webcam chats with Tom and all her clients in front of the husband. So she's literally like getting them off in front of her husband. So he's like playing games or on phone, and she's like naked. Oh my god, it has come to this. So before she comes to Australia, Tom is meeting his friends, and he's like, oh, I will introduce you to my girlfriend. And they're like, oh, where did you meet? And he's like, oh, she's a cam girl. And it started first like a transactional relationship, like I paid her to talk to me, but then it developed into something real. And they asked him like, do you love her? And he said like, yeah. And they're like, does she love you? And he's like, I hope so. And they're like, I truly believe this guy is completely clueless. Like, because I know it's a documentary and, you know, you can argue like, oh yeah, there were some things were set up and it's a production. But I truly like, from this guy, he's not an actor. From this guy, I can literally see he's absolutely crazy about her, and he's got expectations, and he's been saving for 4 years, and now he's like completely believing that his girlfriend is gonna come to town. She's packing right just before the trip, and her husband is like, oh, take something with you that Tom has bought you, right? And she's like, oh, then I would have to take the whole house. So she finally arrives. He's all nervous, you know, he's about to like puke. She arrives and they have like the stupid small talk, completely brainless conversation. It's all awkward, but it's kind of like happy, kind of like, oh yeah, I'm excited to be here. She unpacks some dildo or something, like the box, and she's like, I think this is what you bought me. And he's like, oh yeah, I think so. And then she opens it and it's empty, and he's like, oh, you forgot to pack it. And she's like, I didn't even check whether anything is there. And everything is so funny to her. And I don't think at that point she realizes that the guy is actually being real. And she just like doesn't give a flying beep. And he can actually start like, he can kind of see it, right? But he's blind at this point anyway. At the end of day 1, she checks into a motel or hotel or whatever. And I whether she made him pay for it or she actually used her own money. I don't think so. And there's interview with him. He's like, oh, you know, she wanted to like having like some time off because she just flew in. So she wanted some space. But it's just for today. She's gonna, you know, stay at my place until the end of the trip. And I'm just like, he's just so like a little bit pissed, you know, and kind of like obviously disappointed that he doesn't get late. And then in like another day, there are some, you know, edits that they go different places, and all she does is just like, oh, hello guys, and we are here and here and here. And I don't know whether this is Instagram stories, and she's documented the whole thing, obviously for social media. or her like webcam page. I don't know how it works. And every time she kind of says like, oh, we had a good time, it kind of feels like she's posting it so other guys pay for her trip to, I don't know, Brazil, a guy from Europe, so she can travel the world for free, basically. And every time she's like, oh, did you have a good time? And she's filming herself, and then she puts the phone on Tom. He's like, oh yeah, did you have a good time? And he's like, yeah. And she just like split of a second, and she puts a phone away, and every time he's like trying to say something, she's just like, bye. And I'm like, oh, you, whoa. And then the next day, that's day 3, she told him like, oh, I'm just gonna stay in my hotel for the rest of the trip. I'm not gonna stay at your place. And he kind of flipped it, and now he's saying like, this is much better because I expected some, you know, kinky stuff, and now I'm actually getting to know her for real. So he's even like more excited, and she's just like, oh, she's now realizing that she used him and she used his feelings. And you know, why is this not considered a fraud? Like, I posted Tinder swindler video, right? You can check it out. And everybody, like, not everybody, there was literally 50-50 in the comments, like 50-50. But the 50% of people were arguing with me saying, like, that the Tinder swindler should be in jail because he said he said he needs money, and he said those women that he loves them, and that's why they send him money. This is the same scenario. But now, girl doing it to a guy is acceptable, right? This is okay. But a guy doing this to a girl, he ends up in jail, right? Like, double standards. Tom, on day 3, right? Tom is walking, on the street with her, and he's walking like this, you know, like a peacock, like a big one. She's next to him, and literally, like, at the camera, he says, on the side, you know, he says like, oh, you know, I'm walking around the city with the beautiful girl, with the hot girl, and it's a real boost of confidence and ego, you know, and people look at me and look at us, and I feel so great. And, you know, he's never experienced that before, and probably he never will, because unless he gets famous, he will not have a beautiful girlfriend. And if you don't agree with me, comment, but like, this is reality. He better become like a famous gamer, a Twitcher or YouTuber, and then he can get laid with all the beautiful women. Not all. But there will be some beautiful women who will want some cash. So it's the last day, and she goes to his house just to say goodbye. She starts like, oh, you know, how did you enjoy the trip? And he's like, oh, it was great, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, oh, you know, I know you have different expectations, and, you know, I didn't give you like even like a performance. And he's like, oh, but I realize it's so much better this way because we can get to know each other like for real. And she's like, oh yeah, I think you're too much into it. I'm just like, don't you have a bit of piece of heart? Like, the guy works his ass off at this job, and you come in here, you take all his money for 4 years, laugh at him probably with your husband, and then when you're gonna break his heart, you're just gonna be like, oh, you know, I think you're too much into it. Even though for 4 years she's been calling him, telling him she loves him, right? And then she's like, I think you're too much into it. I'm like, you bitch. And he's just like starts crying. And I'm like, can you just make that face? And she's like, you know, I actually like, I don't feel it this way. And like, but thank you for the trip. It was really cool, really nice. I had a good time. And he's all tearing up. And she's just like, okay, I think you need like a real girlfriend, and like you deserve it, and you're awesome. And she looks away, and clearly she's lying. And I'm just like, dude, she broke his heart, and she broke his bank account as well. She made him go broke, and then she leaves and with her husband, and she tells him like, oh, you don't have to support me anymore, it's okay. And then the guy who was already had mental health issues before, right? And he had like happiness, but it was fake happiness. So then at the end he says like, I think she came in here and she changed her mind about me, and she decided she doesn't like me. So he even feels worse than before. And like, maybe he's, oh god, I just want to know what you think about it, because I watched the episode and I was like, she was, you know, she's a cam girl and she's probably doing it with a lot of people, like telling them that she loves them, etc., etc. And these guys, like nerds, geeks, you know, never had girlfriends. There's one thing, okay, that's kind of like online, it's kind of not real, but when you meet with that person and you know that they expect something and it's like gonna be real because you meet with them and you know they paid so much money so you can come and meet them, and they even introduce you to their friends, and it's just like you draw the line. You don't meet these people, you keep it fake, you keep it like in the online world, you don't actually cross the line. And I think that's what she actually realized in the end. If you have any kind of opinions on that, comment, and if you want to see the videos like this, subscribe.